All right.
This was my takeaway from it. Here's what Mark McCormack said, who built IMG into an incredible company.
Mm,
He said, when you're looking at your P&L and you're looking at everything, all your projections, everything, and you're feeling good,
mm.
do this: double your expenses and cut your revenue in half, and tell me how you feel. Okay.
Mm.
The second is going back to being a smart guy, right? And I kind of use proxy mentors. Okay, one is Michael Dell.
Mm.
Michael Dell says, if you think you're the smartest guy in the room, get new guys. If you still think you're the smartest guy in the room, get a new room.
Hey
Sorry.
everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as a CEO and founder of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. And if you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com and sign up for some time to chat. Now, today we have another great guest on the podcast, and he's also at full disclosure, client of Miller IP Law. So he's even an extra special guest, but excited to have him on. Glenn Foley. So Glenn is the founder of Doma Medical, or at least one of the founders, and I'll let him clarify. I don't know if you're the only founder of Doma Medical, so you'll have to tell us during your journey. But as a bit of a backing up, so he went to high school and went to school in New Jersey, into a strict Catholic school. Then went to Penn State, or to college in Pennsylvania. Got a biology degree. Left school, had no idea what he wanted to do. And then he ran into a professor and of chemistry that told him that he should drop his class because he wasn't going to make it. He came back a year later, took the class, became good friends with the professor. Later on in life, ran into the professor again after he graduated, and the professor told him he should go into marketing, and that kind of set a bit of the trajectory for where he led to where he's at today, with working for Baxter Medical Devices, then going to a bit more of the cardiovascular side, working for different companies, and continuing to go to Medtronics, and then after Medtronics, decided to go to the entrepreneur side of doing laparoscopy surgery. So with that much as a brief overview to a much longer journey, welcome on the podcast, Glenn.
Good to be here, Devin. How's things by you?
Hey, things are going great. I'm busy as ever, and that's the way I like it. So
You got it. You got it. I just need to
So
throw one thing in. We are Miller IP Law's favorite client. Please
you
continue.
are now. Full caveat: I tell all my clients that they're my favorite, but you guys are as much of my favorite as everybody else. So with that, so now taking us back in time, so, I gave the 30-second or whatnot brief overview, but take us back to going to the strict Catholic school in New Jersey and walk us through your journey.
Well, yeah, I'm a born and raised New Jersey kid. It will clearly come out in my accent, especially as I get more excited. However, it was tempered by 25 years in California, which were really great too. I kind of admire and I think back favorably on the nuns and the brothers and the monks. Every time we have to go through something, and we have to basically look at punctuation and all the verbal things and the writing skills. It just all pops back into my head. So God bless them for that. Just grew up in East Brunswick, New Jersey. Exit 9 on the Turnpike. For those of you from Jersey, that'll give you some perspective on it. Nothing. Love sports. Really, it was a great place to grow up. Headed to school at East Stroudsburg University in Pennsylvania. It was a good move for me. Got out of New Jersey a little bit, but not too far. Met some great friends. Got a degree in biology. Why? I have no idea, but I just did.
Because why not? Why not go to biology?
That sounds like an easy. Why not aggravate myself? So I got a degree in biology, and as you mentioned earlier, along the way, you talk about inflection points in life. And when I was a freshman, I had a chemistry professor, and he gave me a big boy talk and said, "Look, you're just not ready. You're not going to do well. Take a walk on this one." And I said, "All right, I appreciate your candor." And I came back the next year. And as you mentioned, I did well, and he and I became sort of the odd couple of friends. And I didn't see him again for a couple of years until I was actually my father was a Newark, New Jersey police detective. So I used to see he and I had this thing. We would always go out for St. Patrick's Day together. That was our thing at his place, McGovern's Tavern. So he and I are walking in as we did every March 17th. And who's coming out in the doorway at the same time? That chemistry professor. And what are we in a doorway? That interchange that you relayed to earlier occurred. And I went, wow, that's a great idea. Thanks a lot, Doc. Have a nice day. And, off we went from there, came up through the ranks, sales, marketing, that type of thing. Got a shot at, more of a entrepreneurial spirited engagement at arteriovascular engineering, which we took in the U.S. market from.
Well, let me dive in really quick. So,
Sure.
so you had the conversation, and you had been graduated at that point when you ran into the professor or with your dad?
I was graduating in May. This was in March.
Okay, so you're almost ready to graduate, trying to decide what you wanted to do, and then he set you on the path to go towards sales and marketing. Is that right?
Exactly. Takeaway: pay attention to what people tell you. So so that's kind of moving forward. Arteriovascular engineering, or AVE, was a great experience because we built it in the U.S. from ground zero to what was then the largest takeout in medical device history by Medtronic. Became a Medtronic officer, exec staff, and was enjoying that. However, that's when it hit me that I much more enjoyed being a builder than a maintenance worker. And Medtronic is Medtronic; they're the gold standard. But there was something fun about taking nothing and making something out of it, where everyone benefited. So I kind of got that bug. Left Medtronic, did some other things, precision vascular engineering, which we exited to Boston Scientific successfully. Then did a number of entrepreneurial things, and then we came upon this concept of this whole idea of laparoscopic surgery and access.
So let me dive in really quick just before
Please.
we go into laparoscopic, and then we'll obviously have a good conversation on that as well. But as you're going a bit through your career and kind of making those, different companies, you're doing different the different jobs that you mentioned, you're going along, you find that you like to be a bit of a creator. How did you, and also some of the companies got acquired, how did you decide, when to exit, when to stay? What was there a common thread kind of throughout those different companies and the jobs that you worked prior to what you're doing at Dome?
There was, and it basically came a time where you either looked at something and said, hey, this is going to succeed. Let's start orchestrating our exit now. And I think that's an important thing to recognize, is that if it has exit potential and that's your end goal, then run it that way, build it that way, and understand that you build it to last, you manage it to exit. And that's kind of the way I looked at it. And then there are times that, hey, it didn't work out, and that's going to happen. If you talk to entrepreneurs and they tell you, hey, never failed, well, then you probably didn't try hard enough, or you didn't go on the risk curve far enough. Okay, so there's always that little tempering when you have discussions amongst those of us on the entrepreneurial side.
So no, and I think that makes sense. And I mean, I think whatever the goal is, you should have that from the start in mind. Because some people, they don't want to, they build it because they want to grow forever. You want to be in the company for 30 years. You want to run it. You want it to be yours and have something, and you don't want it to sell. Then build it to be that company that you're going to enjoy working at for 30 years. Because I think, almost to your point, sometimes you get people that will build it, or they'll build a company, but they won't really think about where it's headed or where they want to make. If they want to make an exit, they want to stay for forever, and they slowly kind of move it unintentionally in the direction to where it's no longer a company they want to work for, right? So in other words, they wanted to work here for 30 years, and they wanted to grow it and expand it and have different product lines. But then they brought on investors. Investors are always pressuring them to sell it. They want to make a return, and then you're back in a spot where you're saying, this isn't what I want to do. So I like how you're kind of throughout that is build it for what you intend to do in the long run.
You know what? Exactly, Devin. And I think there's also the aspect of understanding that there's a lot of people that are helping you along the journey. And there's a lot of people helping you along the way. And I think to be very candid with them and let them know, why we're doing things, how we're doing things, and having them be part of the entire process and not just someone who's given a to-do list, I think is really important. I think it yields much better dividends at the end.
Yeah. No, and I completely agree. And I said the one thing that's been interesting, both as I've been in companies and also watched them from the outside, is the ones that, when you build it with intentionality, when this is what our plan is, what our purpose is, and where we're headed, it makes it a lot higher likely to success rather than, hey, we're just going to build something cool and we'll figure it out later on. Seems to be ones that are kind of the ones that never make it, or they don't head in the direction that would have been the most favorable. So now with that, so now we go. So you went, you kind of navigated between a few of the different companies. You went to Medtronics, or you went to a company that got acquired by Medtronics. You worked, I think, for at a company that was in pharma, and then went to Baxter, and kind of all of those things. And you kind of stayed a lot in the medical field. So is that kind of, and then we'll get into Doma in just a minute. But the medical field is that because you had kind of the biology background and you were meshing now marketing with biology, or kind of what made you gravitate towards the medical field?
I think I gravitated towards medical for a number of reasons. And I think one of it is that it just seemed to be an industry that had really nice people, really good people. I think there was an ethical, moral, there's common thread that that people operated at the highest levels. They conducted themselves in the highest levels. They had class and dignity, and I like that on a day-to-day basis, because there's not a lot of industries that can really say that, but I think it is really true of medical devices.
Oh,
That
that's what people say all the time for the medical or the legal field, is that we all operate with dignity, right? That's what everybody is known for.
well, we've already had fun with that one. I'm going to let that one go.
Fair enough. So now you navigate, you take a few of those different jobs, you kind of build your career, you build your experience. Now, how did you, and then I think the last one that you worked on, and you correct me where I'm wrong, was when you left, you were working for Medtronics after they'd acquire your company, and then they sold it to Boston Scientific, and you decided to take your step into entrepreneurism with the laparoscopic surgery.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things in between, some consulting things, sort of working on some group projects. It was a little bit of step and stairs along the way. But then as part of that, we came upon this concept of looking at laparoscopic surgery access completely different, rethinking it, and just not just making a better mousetrap, but changing the way the whole thing was done. That had a lot of excitement to it. I had, obviously done a lot of research into it, noticed that there were a lot of different tries at different applications, different platforms to make the access component of laparoscopic surgery, easier, more calculated, safer, faster, all the things you try to bring to an operative situation in medicine. We looked at that. And
how did you land on laparoscopic surgery, in the sense that that's certainly not a, what I say, quote unquote, sexy part, or at least it's not a well-known thought. Most people don't think, hey, most people don't know what laparoscopic surgery is, let alone kind of, what it is or what the advantages are or how to improve it. So is that one that came across as you're working for other companies, or you came across an opportunity? How did you kind of get involved with laparoscopic surgery?
Most of it was out of some roundtables that I had been invited to with folks that were doing sort of discovery processes on various aspects of medicine. But I'll tell you, one of the things that really made it an interesting proposition. Okay, now a lot of times, especially in medical devices, you're looking at bringing innovation or improvement to something. You're solving a problem in a market that has been identified, but typically it's not very big. And what you're going to do is you're going to introduce a better way to do it, and then you're going to grow that market. Okay, coronary stents was a perfect example of that. Okay, no one ever heard of a coronary stent, and all of a sudden it came along, and then bing, 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 and then it took off like lightning. Right. So, but that process of building it and educating and building and educating is an arduous one. Here, candidly, here's what one of the most attractive things about laparoscopic surgery is that it already had a base of 18 million procedures globally. So if we could figure out what could be made better, more calculated, faster, safer in an environment that already had 18 million procedures and was growing at 6.8% annually, that was probably a good proposition and probably something that we should look at because we weren't swimming upstream.
Mm.
If what we created brought to the party what we said it would, we're already in a raging river, heading out, to where it's going, as opposed to digging a moat and filling it. And that's kind of my analogy there.
So now you have, okay, so you get into laparoscopic surgery. You say, okay, there's an opportunity here. Kind of got introduced to it with the round tables. You looked into it. There was a lot of procedures that take place every year. It's one where it's ripe for innovation and to change it up and to make it better. Now, how did you start to form or build a company around it? Was it, did you get the investors first? Did you build the team first? Did you start out on your own? Did you prototype it? How did you kind of go about now actually implementing the idea?
Well, we asked a lot of questions of the experts,
Mm.
and they all came back saying, yeah, if you guys can pull this off with the platform you're talking about, it could be a winner. Now, that went through, and this kind of comes down to something that, entrepreneurs have got to accept, is that you better have resolve, because as the world is not here to cater to you. You're here to bring something to the world. So, sometimes that happens quickly. Sometimes that is an arduous path that you have to find the right people to do it with, the right development path, the right investors. Everything needs to fit into a nice box, and then it can take off and do what you want it to do. But that will take time. It certainly did with us. There were a number of iterations of Dome prior to us hitting on the formula of Dome, with the right platform, not a product, a platform with the right products within the platform, the developmental path, the investor path. Everything started coming together, but that didn't happen overnight. That took quite a while.
And when you say quite a while, so I mean, how long? Because you're still at Dome, you're still building it, you're still growing it. Hence, I mentioned you're a client of the firm with Dome. But how long ago did you start it, and how long has that journey been so far?
We we began the first concept of Dome in 2015. So it has been a while. But I tell you what, one of the things I learned, over the years was, make sure whatever you're bringing to the project that you have, it's better to walk away from the wrong participation as opposed to accepting any participation. That being, help on an academic side, an engineering side, an investor side. Take your time and make sure that you have the right people at the party with you. Then you'll succeed.
So one question that kind of comes up. So it took you 5 years, and you guys, I think you're introducing things in the Europe with coming to the U.S. soon to speak. But as you're doing that, 5 years for a development path to getting things up and going to figuring out how to navigate things is is a good amount of time for anybody. So as you're doing that, how did you support yourself or the company? Was it self-funded? Was it bootstrapped? Did you incrementally take on investors, or kind of how did you keep that momentum going so that you didn't lose it over that period of time?
All the above. Okay. All the above. There was bootstrapping. There was self-funding. A lot of self-funding.
Mm.
There were times that sideline jobs were undertaken to make sure that the light stayed on while we were seeing the vision through. And I think that's a key thing, is that visions don't have timelines. A vision is a vision, and whatever you need to do to take it from point A to point Z to see it through, there's no rule that says you have to do it in 2 years, 3 years. There's no rule that says there's any timeline. The whole idea is to take it to the market in its most pristine fashion.
No, and I think that's a good point. So now bringing us up to today, kind of give us an idea of where Doma is at, and then kind of where you see things going in the next 6 to 12 months.
Well, we've done a lot of focus in the past year on our intellectual property portfolio, which we're proud is moving right along. Very happy about that. Where we are today is we have established our first device coming to market. We've got 2 in development. We have manufacturing set up. We have packaging set up. We have engineering set up. We are looking at launching 2 investigative protocols in Europe. Those are underway. We are looking to file for CE mark sometime in the April timeframe, followed by FDA 510K for our first device. And from there, we're going to use a lot of our expertise from all our years past as part of the team members that have come on, bring to the party, and look at a commercialization effort in Europe. In parallel, we'll be doing the same thing in the US. So from a very macro level, we have a platform, we have a product portfolio pipeline. The first device is coming to market, manufacturing, packaging, initial distribution, initial protocols for going to market in Europe. Everything has been lined up, and we're ready to hit the go button.
No, I think, and that's an exciting place to be. I mean, it's always, no matter how long it takes, it's excuse me, always kind of two things that I always think are fun phases of a business, or I guess maybe 3. One is to have the initial idea, and that's always kind of fun. And you can say, okay, now I've got an idea. That's all, that's exciting in and of itself. But then the next thing that I think is even more fun is to actually make the idea, right? In the sense that you may be prototyping, you may be building it, you figure out how it's going to work. And I think the third, probably most fun stage, and it's always fun building a company, is that now you actually get to see all of that work and time and effort start to come to fruition. With whether it's you get to start to see the product being used, you get to see the product in the market being selling, and it sounds like you guys are certainly approaching that time frame. You get to start to see kind of that next phase of all the time and effort and momentum that you guys have been building over the years really start to kick in.
Absolutely. That's exactly where we are. And the couple of the real 3 things that are really almost joyous. One is that initial commercial purchase order. The second is the response from the surgeon when they come out of the OR going, you guys have a winner. And the third is the invoice that gets paid.
No, and I think that's so. I can't remember. I started a few different companies. One of the companies, and it's still going, is just a small kind of family side business where I get employee. Some of my nieces and nephews and my son that does it. And it's not a big. It's never going to be a big company, or it's not going to make tons of money. But I enjoy it just because it kind of is a side hobby, and I get to work with some of the kids, nephews and nieces and kids on it. But I remember, even that company, the first sale, and it was really like $1 or $2 because it's a pretty low price item. It's as exciting as some of the big sales. It doesn't matter, that excitement of, hey, somebody actually bought it, somebody actually wants it. I'm not crazy, and it's actually well received. I think is one of the most exciting times of a business.
You get to turn to everybody and go, I told you so.
That's right. See, I wasn't crazy, or at least not as crazy as you thought I was.
That's right. Exactly.
Well, now as we start to wrap towards the end of the podcast, I always have 2 questions that I ask, so we'll jump to those now. So the first question is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
Oh boy, this one I reflect on all the time. And it usually comes back to the same one. And it's kind of a philosophical one, not a tactical one. And that is that I didn't appreciate the value of good personal relationships and nurturing mentors along the way. Because, you're in the thick of the battle, you're in the thick of everything. The trees and forest syndrome sets in. And I should have valued getting really expertise, advice, guidance, counseling from those that have been there before. And if I was, I'm changing that tune now, believe me, and that I seek advice from as many people as I possibly can. So I would just say, don't do what I did. Please relish personal relationships, really nurture your mentors and make them an integral part of your day.
No, and I think that's a good piece of advice. But it's an easy one to hear, and it's sometimes much harder to implement, in the sense that, and I think almost every entrepreneur that I've known, including myself, you get into the thing, I know better than everybody else, or I can figure this out, or I'm smarter. And you almost have to be, in the sense, if you don't have that, hey, I'm smarter than everybody else, I'm going to do what other people haven't done, you would never get anywhere. You would never have the confidence or the endurance or the persistence to do it. And yet, to your point, it's, there are so many people that have experience in other areas, that have knowledge that you don't have, and they can offer it. And so you have to be willing to say, while I think I think I can do this, and I'm the smartest guy in the room, I'm also going to step back and see what other people people are going to say, take that feedback, because you're going to get much farther and have a much higher likelihood of success.
No question about it. It should be an integral part of your day. That doesn't mean you're not a smart guy or you're doing all the right things. But if there's one little bit, one little hint that can make you that much better, you've had a good day.
No, and I always look at, on that note, similar but different note, I always look and says, it's starting out a business. You're always looking and say, I got to do everything myself because everybody else will never do it as well as I do. I know what I'm doing and they'll only do it. I always looked at and said, if they can do it 80% as well as I do, and that's kind of where I tried to set it, that it's time for me to offload that and it's time for somebody else to do it because yes, I may be able to do it better, but that 80% frees up my time to do other things that other people can't do at 80% as well. And it really is the place where I can add the most value.
Steve, somebody once asked Steve Jobs, they said, how do you integrate all these smart people into Apple? You tell them what to do. And he said, absolutely not. He says, we hire the best people that we can find and they tell us what to do.
I think that's a very good advice from a good man. So now we're going to jump to the second question, which is if you're talking to someone that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Oh, I've got a few. One is I'm going to go back to cultivating mentors. It's huge. The second is I used to read annually a book by Mark McCormack entitled What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School. Okay. I didn't go to Harvard Business School. Okay.
That would make two of us. I did go to business school, but it was not Harvard.
I read the book. Okay.
All right.
This was my takeaway from it. Here's what Mark McCormack said, who built IMG into an incredible company. He said, when you're looking at your P&L and you're looking at everything, all your projections, everything, and you're feeling good, do this: double your expenses and cut your revenue in half, and tell me how you feel. Okay. The second is going back to being a smart guy, right? And I kind of use proxy mentors. Okay, one is Michael Dell. Michael Dell says, if you think you're the smartest guy in the room, get new guys. If you still think you're the smartest guy in the room, get a new room.
No, I think that those are some great pieces of advice. I think that you should be surrounding, at least with different areas of expertise. And nobody's going to be the smartest in every area, but get the people that are experts in those areas that just blow you out of the water because they're going to give you that value that you're never going to be able to add yourself.
Exactly. I got two fun ones for you.
All right, let's hear them.
Going back to Mr. Jobs. He always said, it's a lot more fun to be a pirate than to join the Navy. We live by that every day. And the last one is sort of the real fun one when you're sitting around the room and you've been there, Devin, I've been there. You're wringing your hands over what you invest money in, where do we spend it, where's the return, where's all this kind of thing. And you're sitting around trying to figure out what do we do about this decision. The great Sir Richard Branson has the answer. In fact, he wrote an entire book about it. It's called Screw It, Let's Do It.
That sounds like something he would say. No, that definitely makes sense.
Because remember what we do. Remember, we sign the front of the check, not the back of the check. And we've got to make it a little bit of fun for us too.
No, and I completely agree. And there's certainly something to be said for, making it fun along the way. And if it's not fun, you're doing it wrong in the sense that that's why you got into doing entrepreneurship. Because if you're not having fun, entrepreneurship and starting your own company, running your own business, it's not an easy thing. It's not an overnight success, and it's going to take a lot of time and effort. So you better make sure you're having fun because that's the thing that's going to get you through it.
I totally agree. Totally agree.
Well, as we wrap up, as people want to find out more about Dome Medical, they want to be a client, they want to be they're a doctor, want to find out more, they want to be an investor, or they just want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out, find out more, and connect up with you?
Best way to reach out to us is go to domemedical.com. There's going to be, it'll be a good storyline on what Dome is all about, what we do, how we do it, the philosophy with which we take, the vision with which we approach it. And there's a number of places within that website that you could use connectivity to let us know who you are. And then we'll get in touch with you because you can never have enough friends.
Hey, that's always a very truism. So, Well, thank you, Glenn, for coming on. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, feel free to go to inventiveguest.com and apply to be on the show. If you are a listener, also one, make sure to click subscribe so you know when all of our awesome episodes come out. And two, leave us a review so new people can find us. And last but not least, if you ever need help with patents, trademarks, or anything with your business, feel free to go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. Thank you again, Glenn, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks, Devin. Best to you and everybody at Miller IP Law.
Thanks.